Hey, I did my EcoMap on HL, who's a 14-year-old Caucasian male, identifies as questioning, not sure of his sexual identity yet. Up here, there's a key, and I'll start with the key, and then that way I can go ahead and show you the rest. So up here, the key starts with the strong dark line is his strength, a strong relationship or connection, and that's positive for him. The broken orange line is weak and tenuous. The stressful line is comprised of green, like railroad tracks, and then the energy or positive line is purple with like little arrows. Okay, so we're going to start with him, and then we've got his mother, who's 40, and his father, who's 42. With mom, there's a tenuous connection because he states that she doesn't really know how to give affection, and he knows that she loves him, but hugs and anytime like that she's very uncomfortable with. So I'd call that tenuous, even though it's kind of a good connection, but it's still tenuous. Over here, his dad, he has a really good connection, and I think he spoke highly of the fact that they have a good connection. So that gives him positive. So there's the dark and the purple. He has a brother who's 23 and lives in a different state, and a sister who's 19. She lives here in Topeka. He has a strong connection to both of them, and doesn't do a lot with them because this one is on her own, does come home sometimes, but the brother's out of state. But he speaks fondly of going to see his brother at least once a year as a family trip, so there's a good connection there. We go over to, let's just start over here to school. School is, for my client, is stressful because there are some expectations. He's always had a very somewhat stressful relationship with school, having been kicked out of several schools. Now he's in our setting, which is an alternative school, so he does better here, but it still has always created kind of some stress for him. However, over here, school, over here, it's hard to see backwards. Over here, the social worker at school, I have made that a very positive and full of positive energy line because of the two social workers at school, especially one of them, he has a very good connection with. So that kind of balances out the kind of tenuousness and the stress for school. We go over here to community events or things in the community. He really has it's weak. He really doesn't have any outside activities that he does. He's kind of a homebody. He self-reports that he's just a homebody. He doesn't really care about going out. Go down here to friends. He has two specific friends, PP and EA, and they actually are in his school setting, but they do come over to his house, and he goes over to theirs occasionally. They generally just play video games, but that's a very positive connection for HL. And even though they have their ins and outs with their relationships, he does state that they are good friends and they're close friends, and they're very important to him, and they create a really strong foundation of positivity for him. We go over here to his hobbies. Like many 14-year-old young men, his hobbies consist of video games, TikTok, YouTube. A very strong connection to that. He says he has not an Instagram, a TikTok. He does do TikToks. He gets views on things. So that's something that he pretty much does most of the time at home. He doesn't have any other hobbies. He doesn't like to read. He doesn't exercise. He strictly says exercise isn't something he enjoys. So his hobbies consist mainly of the video games, which he can play with his friends, which again makes this connection even stronger. We go over here to social services. He does get services in the community at our local community service site for youth. It's been on and off for the last several years, so that is kind of a stressor because at some points there's been a lot of turnover. So a worker that he has had or a community support team member that he has had and grown some affection for and gotten used to, the turnover means then that he has to get a new one. So that's kind of been more of a stressor, and currently he does not have anybody he is seeing, and he's not really inclined to try again at this point, which it might change, but right now that's not something he really fosters because of the constant turnover, and he doesn't really want to engage again, which is kind of sad, but it's understandable. Over here, I did put the grandmas and the grandpas on both sides. This is the father's grandma and grandpa and the mom's. The father's mom and dad, so HL's mom, grandma and grandpa, live across the street from him, which is interesting. But he states that the grandmother is an alcoholic, which causes some great distress. There's stressful, so it's not only stressful for HL, but it's stressful for the dad. For the dad, his mother is an alcoholic, and that creates stressors between the grandma, the grandpa, and the dad, which in turn that stresses HL out a lot. Even though he goes over to the house occasionally, there's some problems and issues going on there. Over on the mom's side, there's a pretty weak connection to her mom and dad, and HL doesn't really say that he sees this set of grandparents very often. So that's weak and tenuous, and isn't really important in his world, as important in his world as this set of grandparents. And then finally, the last two are health. He has a weak, tenuous relationship with health. When I asked about dental care, or going to the physician on a regular basis, he doesn't acknowledge that that's the case. He doesn't really do that. So I take that as kind of weak and not important to him, and somewhat not important to his family. Now, this is him reporting. I could get a different information from the parents, but that's not who I was speaking to, so I have to go on what he told me. And then the spiritual side, or any type of mention with God, again, for him that's very weak. The reason this is because he may state that there might be something there, but he doesn't feel a need for it. He does say, though, that his mother has a very strong, so I denoted that with the dark line, a very strong relationship with God, and does have a spiritual side, and he's fine with that. It's just for him, it's not that important. So that's my EcoMap of HL, and I hope you enjoyed it.